Hey everyone, my name is Erin Meyer. I'm the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator at the University of California, Merced. There, I coordinate a variety of programs, including the very long title, the Bobcat Eats Food Waste Awareness and Prevention Program, as well as the People's Fridge, the Pop-Up People's Pantry. We have a contactless food box delivery system, and a few other things. And we have also started a AMA series, an Ask Me Anything series, as well as a panel series. And this is one of those panels where we're talking to cool women in ag tech about a awesome book called From Farms to Incubators. And we'll get to that in a moment. But before pursuing too far, I thought we would have our guests introduce themselves. So Amy, do you want to begin and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Erin, for the for having us and for hosting this event. I'm super excited to be here today. My name is Amy Wu. I'm the founder and the creator of From Farms to Incubators. It's a multimedia platform where we use documentary, written word, photography, and the latest is the book to uplift the voices of women innovators in the area of agri-food tech. I was a professional journalist for many, many years before I started to specifically focus on women in ag tech. And I'm just really happy to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Jessica, would you like to briefly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, my name is Jessica Gonzalez, and I'm the owner and beekeeper of Happy Organics. It's a wellness company and also a sustainable apiary. I have a background in computer science, and I co-founded an ag tech startup in Salinas, and that's how I connected with Amy, and that's why I was featured in the book as well. Um, and now a lot of my work focuses around sustainable apiaries and regenerative farming. And I'm hoping to uh, do a soft launch of an app I'm working on sometime in August. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Awesome. Thank you. So to begin, I think I'm going to ask some pretty basic, just like introductory questions about ag tech to give people who may be listening kind of just a one over basic information about what it is. So my question is, what exactly is ag tech? What are some examples? Like if you define it maybe in one sentence, how would you define it?
Um, so AgTech is I'm going to try to do it in one sentence. That might be the greatest challenge that I'm going to have today, but it's basically agriculture and innovation and innovations that help growers be more efficient, whether it be literally growing more efficiently or also being more cost effective. And there's many different kinds of innovation underneath that umbrella that I'd like to talk more about today. But basically, I see it as the marriage of agriculture and technology to help growers.
Perfect. Jessica, anything to add? That was pretty concise.
Yeah, no, nothing to add.
Awesome. All right. So why do we need ag tech and innovation? What are some of the problems that that ag tech aims to solve?
Okay, I can start with that. Ag tech aims to solve a lot of the problems and threats I think that farmers are facing, and a lot of it comes under climate change. The women that I profiled in the book, including Jessica, there's nearly 30 women actually, but I think each of their innovations and products are a solution to some of the issues that growers are facing, everything from water and land supply and management issues, from the lack of arable, land and farmable land rather, and also a lack of a supply of labor, field workers that are aging out. So we can talk more in depth about that, but I think specifically it's addressing issues that come underneath the climate change.
Yeah, and when I was at the business I co-founded, we were solving mostly an operations issue where we were trying to basically replace all the paperwork that they were using out in the field with a simple app. Um, so yeah, ours was mainly like operations based.
Awesome. How can we get more women into the field? And I do mean that farm pun definitely intended.
How can we get more women in the field of ag tech, the ag tech sector, right? The good news, I think, is that there are more women in the fields of ag tech. I've seen it over the past several years. When I first started my research in 2015 and 16, I didn't come across a lot of women who were leaders and founders of ag tech companies. And I don't think it was because I wasn't unearthing them. I think that there were fewer women, but I think over the years, there's been a greater interest, certainly in the agri-food tech space in general, whether it be from investors and growers. So that's actually sparked a lot of interest, and also with consumers, particularly during the pandemic. I think everybody has had an interest in how food is grown, why it's grown, where it goes, how it's distributed, and so forth. How do we get more women in general in the field? I think would be starting from kindergarten into 12th grade. I'm going to begin there. I think it starts with education, weaving in ag tech into the curriculum. I think it comes with mentorship and connecting women already working in the area with younger people who are youth or young women who have an interest in the area. I recently spoke with a group of youth from the Chicago high school of agricultural sciences, and all of them are studying things that kind of blows my mind, but they all have an interest in exploring ag tech. So I think it also starts with mentorship as well.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. Back in 2016, when I connected with Amy around that time, it felt like I was one of like a handful of women, and it was very, um, the environment was very toxic, I'd say. So for me, it was like a very stressful thing to be around. So it would have been nice to have more people like me in the same environment. Um, and yeah, I think it was one of the reasons I left in the first place. One of the bigger reasons. It's kind of hard to progress in an environment where you don't feel too welcome. But I think it's definitely changed, and there are a lot more women and people of color that are in the field now too.
Great. So maybe now just a couple of specific questions I have for Amy at least. Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book because for a number of reasons. Number one, I was a reporter living in Salinas and covering the Salinas Valley for a local newspaper called The Californian at the time. So I was assigned to cover local government, and within that, local economy. And also then within that, I learned ag tech. So part of it was that in writing and reporting about agriculture, I saw the importance of innovation playing a role as a solution for the problems that growers were facing. And, the sector was growing, and there were a lot of, I saw the growth. There were startups in the Western Growers for Center for Innovation and Technology in Salinas. But I chose to focus on women and write about women because it was an untold story. I really wanted to uplift the voices of women in this area because it wasn't being written about, and their accomplishments and their journeys were not being told. And I grew a passion for making sure that their voices were out there. And I wanted to make sure that I not only wrote about the innovation itself, but also about who the women were. They are all have amazing backgrounds from all different places, all different personal histories. But I eventually found that the commonality, or one of the commonalities, is that they all have a passion for solving big impact issues. So that's why I decided, part of the reason why I decided to write the book. And then the other thing, Erin, to take a step back, is that I put together a documentary first in 2017 that introduced a handful of women, including Jessica, to introduce them as women founders in ag tech. At the time, not a lot of people knew that there were even women founders in ag tech. So the early days when we would hold panel discussions, and I think one of them was at the Western Growers for Center of Innovation Technology, the panelists would look at each other and say, I didn't know that she was also there, she exists, and they really wanted to connect with one another. And then the documentary did really well, but increasingly I found more and more stories, meaning I couldn't stop asking, do you know of a women innovator in agriculture, in ag tech? I kept asking the question, and I kept getting more people saying, can you check out this company? Have you talked to this woman? So there were so many inspiring stories that I decided I had to house them all in a book. So that's why we have nearly 30 women in the book, and there's more stories beyond the book as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, with those other stories, you have a blog, correct? Can they be found there?
Sorry?
Where can we find those other stories about the women that you're mentioning?
Well, there are other stories, and this is where, we're deciding whether or not there's a sequel or not in this also,
Okay.
so it could be a documentary, could be a book. I feel strongly about presenting it as stories, because I feel like by telling people's stories is a great platform for discussion. I would love to also eventually have a blog where we actually can include more and more of the stories. I'm hoping someday we'll have a repository of all of these different stories that people can search and find and connect with different women in the field.
Awesome. And so why did you choose to feature the specific females that you did?
So the women that I chose to feature, and some women were amazing, but they couldn't make the book for various reasons. We ended up with actually a lot more stories than we had planned. But first of all, it was their story that really drew me. So in other words, I often started out the conversation and with the folks that I connected with, and Jessica, feel free to jump in, but I really wanted to get to know them as people first. Some of my questions when I first connected would be, did agriculture run in your family? What did your grandparents do? What did your parents do? What drew you into this field of agriculture? What made you what got you to launch an ag tech company? And I think that gets to the root of why I was so fascinated by what drew them and inspired them to launch an ag tech company or be involved. Because at the time, ag tech really was a sector where people were like, what is ag tech? And in the world of investment, investors traditionally don't invest in agriculture. It's a different, it's quote unquote slower moving when it comes to return on investment. So there's a lot of risk in being involved in ag tech, in starting your own team, in fundraising capital that you need for a startup. And in general, being an entrepreneur is really challenging in any sector. You gotta build your own team. You have to get the funds. So I remember one of the women in the book, she told me she drove across the country from New York to California to start an ag tech company. And I was just like, what would drive somebody to do that? So it was their personal stories, and then it was their innovation, and it was their passion as well that drew me to their stories too.
Fantastic. Thank you. Why did you dedicate the book to your dad?
I dedicated the book to my dad. I actually acknowledged quite a lot of people, and I was struggling to think who could I dedicate it to, because there's so many people I really wanted just to dedicate the book to. I dedicated it to him because I think he's a trailblazer as well. In fact, I think of all the women in the book as trailblazers. He is an immigrant himself. He came to this country when he was 17 years old, and he was also the oldest of 6 brothers and sisters. The first one to leave Hong Kong and study here. And he was the first to become a professor, in his family. And I thought, language, cultural differences were all quote unquote barriers, but he overcame that, through his sheer, passion and really wanting to settle down and create something here and do his research here. And I thought he has some commonalities with the women that I came across. So I thought it was really, now he's 74 years old and he's actually still teaching at the university where he started in 1977. So I thought another trait that he has that connects him with the stories of the women is his persistence. he's just kept going, you know, despite so many different challenges along the way. He's just kept going.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And then Jessica, a few specific questions for you. Can you tell me more about your work at Heavy Connect?
Yeah, so I'll kind of tell you how I got started with the company. I was working as a software developer in San Francisco, and I happened to connect with this man, Patrick Zelaya, who is my co-founder. And you know, at the time, I wasn't very happy at my job in San Francisco, and I thought it was the perfect chance to change because I grew up in agriculture. My parents, you know, were in agriculture, so my dad started a like wholesale produce company uh, later, and then you know, we were just always in agriculture, so it just kind of made sense for me at the time. And so I moved down to Salinas, and the idea around the company was pretty simple. It was to remove paperwork from the operations, or basically like paperwork from the field, because a lot of the times the farm managers were still using paper for time cards or for safety or for like any type of work that they did. It was all done on paper first, then manually entered into the computer. So it was kind of like doing double the work. And, you know, if you think about a farm that has over 2,000 employees still doing paper time cards, you know, you have 50 people in payroll just entering manually time cards pretty much every day. So, you know, it seemed to us a pretty simple task to accomplish. It turned out to be very difficult, in fact, but yeah, something very simple, simple problem, simple solution. And so yeah, that's kind of where we started. And then the idea was to try to tackle other like paperless solutions for the farms.
Fantastic. And then you transitioned over to Happy Organics and the app that you mentioned earlier. Do you want to tell me more about Happy Organics, what that is, and what you're aiming to do with it in the future?
Yeah, so Happy Organics is the story is very personal. I left Heavy Connect after my mom passed, again, because I was very unhappy. So I just kind of wanted to start something that I thought would give me more meaning in life. And so my dad was a hobby beekeeper, and I started helping him with the bees in 2017. And then it slowly turned into a business. I never really intended for it to, but it just kind of managed to take on a life of its own. And so, yeah, right now, Happy Organics is a sustainable apiary and wellness company. So I make products like muscle bombs, CBD honey, massage oils, things like that. Um, and on the other side of it, I'm working with small sustainable farmers to place um, beehives on their farms to provide sustainable pollination services for them. And I'm hoping to expand on that with something I'm hoping to launch in August. I'm kind of still developing the idea right now, but things are kind of falling into place at the moment. So it seems like it's the next step for Happy Organics, or it could potentially be a separate company on its own. So yeah, that's something I'm currently working on.
Fantastic. And I just put a link in the chat to Happy Organics as well as the book and the website. So I think I want to just open it up for others to ask questions. I've got several others, but I want to see if anyone has any specific questions for our guests. And if so, feel free to just unmute yourself and chat away.
Hey, this is Tom Harmon. I'm at UC Merced, and we're thinking about what the future of education looks like for people going into ag tech, and would value your opinion on basically how do we have the right kind of ingredients at the university right now, and it's more a matter of repackaging them, or do we need a full new menu?
So I'll jump in with that first. I don't know, Tom, exactly what's on the menu so far, but I'll jump in with some thoughts about that. I think that it's a great opportunity right now to extend or expand opportunities, whether that be a program, workshop, events, in terms of for students, existing students, and also beyond. There's a lot of opportunities within the agtech sector because it requires there's a whole new knowledge set and skill set, and it really covers everything from the biological sciences to marketing and publicity, communications, and folks who have the expertise in areas, for example, artificial intelligence, blockchain, sensors, drones, and also at the same time, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to communicate what ag tech is about with growers and with those who are basically using the technologies. So I think within a curriculum, there should not only be like maybe the 101 in basics of what is ag tech, and also foundational work within, subsets of various interests, but also connecting people who are already in the field, literally, like folks like Jessica and others. And it could be everybody from entrepreneurs to those working for large agribusinesses, because large agribusinesses also are now investing in ag tech, including companies like Microsoft. So I think there's a ton of job opportunities and out there, and that's a big draw, I think, actually, for any program. And I feel like Merced is in a perfect place. Agriculture is already a tremendous sector there, and it would really draw folks even more and more to Merced and the surrounding areas. So those are my beginning thoughts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe from Jessica's perspective, like I think you said you had a computer science background, but then you have family connections to ag, right? So that's a natural. Then I worry about the kids who are computer scientists who are unhappy, but they don't have family connections to ag. So they're not confident about getting out there and working with the bees, for example. Maybe we need to teach computer science and have the opportunity to work out in the fields or something.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that one of the biggest things I saw that was missing in Salinas when I was working there was that community connection and involvement, both from the farmers and from the tech people. And it just seemed like there wasn't a huge effort to try to combine everything. And I think there's like a perfect opportunity now, especially I think UC Merced is working on a smart farm, I believe. And it'd be really worthwhile to try to connect community members, whether they're in agriculture or technology or both, instead of having it just isolated to the UC. I think it's really important to connect. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I was actually going to ask a follow-up question to the education component. My name's Lee Bernacki, and I'm from UC Merced, and we have a couple workforce programs. To Amy and Jessica, I'm wondering what interventions would you suggest for early education that keeps women interested in agriculture? Because we see the leaky pipeline about middle school for both genders or all genders, and then men tend to come back, but women don't come back to STEM. So I feel like agriculture might be a way to retain them, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
I think that's fantastic that there are efforts being made, to, for the K to 12, student population. I think one idea is also, and I'm seeing universities start to do this, or colleges as well, is competitions and actually holding innovation competitions for young people or children even. explaining to them, you know, that here is like some problems that farmers are facing, and giving them a foundation of why that's so important. You know, farmers are here to grow the food that the population might be like 10 billion by 2050. So giving them some background about the importance of this and how it connects with their lives, like every day all of us eat. And then also having it be fun, you know, like I said, a competition where they have to create something and learn what it means to create something to solve a problem, and also offering them like a fun prize. You know, I mean, for some universities it's substantial, and there's a whole line of judges and it's actually something that motivates, I think, young people to get into the field. And whether or not they decide to continue with it is totally up to them, but at least they get a taste of what it's about, and they get to network with other people in the industry, because often some of these judges are folks like our Jessica, you know, entrepreneurs and others who are actually like local government officials or policymakers. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with that and making it fun.
Yeah, and I was going to mention, I know in Watsonville they have a free after school program, like coding, computer science, technology program. And it's free for the kids, you know, they don't have to pay anything. And it's great. Like everyone in there was so excited to be there. And they had mentors, they had rooms for people to study in, different classes. And I just thought it was amazing that, you know, it was all free. And, um, you know, I imagine something like that working out like really great here in Merced.
I'll definitely look up that program, but yeah, thank you for the great ideas. It's a real issue though to see all these bright minds leave, and and even if they go into computer science, like they're solving apps, not solving world hunger, you know?
Yeah, I think there's another aspect that I thought about related to this, is like, at least when I was living in Salinas in the years there, a lot of the young people that I came across, their parents work in agriculture in the fields, and they were either encouraged or they saw through their own personal experience that to please leave and move to other cities and leave, you know, the area. And I think part of it is that was ingrained in them, but it actually turns out a lot of young people do want to stay if there are good jobs. And I think they need to be shown that, like, you know, you can have a really good job opportunities and professional opportunities and also stay close to home. They need to see real people and examples of that as well, and not just, I feel like, be told that. So I think there's a lot of chances to maybe connect people who have grown up in ag-centric regions, who are really have found success in their professions, and talk to some of the younger people about how they did that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, because you know, I grew up in agriculture. Like I grew up on a farm, and it never clicked for me that I could have a career in agriculture, you know, and until I left, you know, and I was in San Francisco, and then like, you know, it finally clicked at, you know, whatever, 20 years old, you know. So I never felt like there was much to do here in Merced. And, you know, it was very different 15 years ago, of course, but yeah, now there's like the UC and so many more things going on too. So Merced's very different, and I think people can more clearly see like a future for themselves here.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, I'll go again if I got some. So Jessica, you found your way into bees. How do you look ahead and see your next thing? Do you have advisors, or do you survey the domain, or how do you think about where you're going to get your next kind of gig or your action or your app?
Yeah, I read a lot about bees, and I read different philosophies around bees. And, you know, I think about how my dad kept bees and how my grandpa kept bees, and I just kind of imagine, and I guess I just try to combine, like, you know, what I learned at Heavy Connect or while I was at Salinas, you know, and kind of think, yeah, I don't have people I talk to, you know, I wish I did. I just don't have the community yet here. But I am trying to build it. So if anyone wants to connect, you know, feel free to reach out to me. Um, but yeah, definitely, like I'm trying to get involved at the Smart Farm at UC Merced. Um, and yeah, I'm still trying to build community, but I'd say for the most part right now, it's a lot of online research, a lot of book reading, mostly, yeah.
A lot of the Merced crew here is in on the Smart Farm, so we'd
Mm.
have you involved.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be a part of it. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Can I learn more about the Smart Farm? Maybe just a brief high-level overview of it.
Do you want me to go, Anna, or do you want to do it?
Why don't you go ahead?
The Smart Farm is 40 acres on the south end of campus that was approved by Chancellor Munoz just a couple months ago. So it's literally 40 acres and not even a mule at this point. But we are starting working groups this summer for faculty thinking of trying to look ahead. We envision it as a farm of the future, an experimental smart farm with community and educational components out front. We want to also find our niche amongst the big giants of agricultural research, and we see our niches as helping to sculpt the future of farm work and find ways to help people find their place in the work ecosystem of the future. We also want to, in our DNA at UC Merced is sustainability. So we want the farm to be about renewable energy, soft footprint on the environment, and from a very practical standpoint, automating the headache of regulatory compliance that farmers face. You kind of alluded to it, Jessica, with your paperwork app, trying to make that stuff take care of itself while the farmer is in the business of growing their crops. So that would be sort of the canvas that the farm would sit on. And on that canvas, research topics would come and go with the researchers, but it would always be within those boundaries, we think.
And I have to put in kind of a shameless plug and ask this question, but if you're growing food, will you then donate that food to like a dining center or community groups? What is the plan for any food you intend to grow?
Well, we will have a community, we'll have a community garden there dedicated, operated by students, by community members. All that stuff is, to be determined, and that's what we're working out. I would say yes, we would, want to see the food go to good use. But we envision beautiful facilities, farmers markets, master gardening classes, all that good stuff is what we're trying to put on the table this summer and get it organized and start, frankly, looking for funding.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely the Smart Farm is a great opportunity to connect not only with the on-campus community, but the off-campus community as well. And I think right now building those connections is great. And, certainly people who are, involved in ag tech business, and agricultural business in general, I think is absolutely key to that. I did have a question. I know that in terms of, startups and investment and some of the ag tech businesses that are made, I was wondering if there were any like accelerator programs in the Central Valley or any desire for them that are kind of focused on ag tech or, elevating women and through kind of investment. I know that there was lots of discussion and kind of study looking at women CEOs and how, there's a disparity in investment to female and women run startups. And, the kind of accelerator area of work. So I was just wondering your thoughts on that, or if you knew of any organizations in the Central Valley that do that type of thing.
I think that's a really good point. What I found with a good number of the women who I've connected with over the years is that actually accelerator programs and incubator programs have played a really essential role actually in getting them started, especially at the really, really early stages, at the stage of getting their first round of funding. So being in the Salinas Valley area and also doing research certainly in this Central Coast and also the Central Valley, there were certainly some accelerator and incubator programs. I mean, I could name a few. I know that there's the Thrive program. There's also Ag Launch as well. And I think it's not only essential for the funding and resources, but also to connect them with growers, with those in the, literally, like, it could be everywhere from growers to the local government. I mean, policymakers, people who they should know to get started, because there has been a challenge with, especially with women who are trying to launch companies in this area. Could be for a number of reasons, because through the traditional investment routes of venture capital, a lot of the managing partners and decision makers remain to be men who are probably used to doing things a certain way. And change is tough sometimes. But there are also, over the years, there's been some investors or investment companies that are run by women who are on the lookout, especially for women in this area. And I think it's a great opportunity to, if it doesn't already exist, have an accelerator or incubator program right there. I mean, hopefully in Merced as well. I think it would be a real draw.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we got a lot of our funding directly from the growers we were working with, just because funding outside of that was really hard to do. So yeah, we worked directly with the growers, and they were really willing to, after they heard our whole speech and everything. But yeah, we got a lot of our funding from them because they were really invested in what we were doing. And currently, the app I'm working on is self-funded, so through my own business, I'm just funding it through that. But yeah, I'd say like venture capitalists, like going that route is a little bit tougher.
I was going to say, to add to that a little bit, I know that now there are some accelerators that are partnering with even community colleges. I can think of one, Ag Launch. They're actually based out of Tennessee, where they're partnering with community colleges that are historically Black colleges, and they've received funding, I think, from various resources to support an accelerator program specifically targeting the BIPOC community, and especially African Americans. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, I wonder about that intersection between, graduates coming out of community colleges and the UCs, and how to funnel them towards and train them for being able to get funding. Because I feel like you can have a great idea, and then there's all these nuts and bolts that you kind of learn incidentally by just trying to figure out how to make it real.
So speaking of funding and money, I had a random kind of question. If I wanted to invest in some of these companies, which ones are public that you know off the top of your head, if any? Like some of those that are featured in the book. Do you happen to know?
So the question, Erin, is, are any of them public companies?
Yeah, that I can invest in. Yeah.
Right. I think there are quite a few companies that have gotten investment, from the book, but I think that there are very few that are public companies. I can think of one they're traded actually publicly on the NASDAQ, and that's Marrone Bio Innovations. I think it's a little bit of an, unique, though. Of course, it was started in 1996. I mean, Pam Marrone is pretty amazing. She's been an entrepreneur for a long time. It's more in the area of ag bio. but a good number of the companies have gotten a substantial investment. I mean, like Trace Genomics, and a lot of them have gotten it through beginning with accelerators and then through venture capital, and others have actually gotten their investment through grants with the USDA or the National Science Foundation. It very much depends on the type of innovation as well, because there are many different subsects underneath ag tech. Also, it depends on if they're working with, like, you know, pesticides, herbicides, or if they're more in the area of robotics and automation. It kind of really depends, actually.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else have questions? This will go until 4, so we've got plenty of time. Okay, I can ask a question real quick. How can we learn more about ag tech? Are there any like specific books, podcasts, or documentaries that you might recommend?
Amy,
What?
I
Oh.
said Amy's book.
Yeah.
Of course.
I was going to say, well, thanks, Jessica. I was going to say, like, you know, the book that that I have, I feel like actually is a very valuable resource. I was going to say, somebody the other day was saying to me that it's a valuable resource, not only because it's one of the only right now books about women in ag tech, but because of the way it's organized. It's literally organized by 30 portraits and profiles. So every chapter is a different profile of a woman. So if somebody really wanted to connect with and understand ag tech or connect with the women, they could pick up the book and it would be a bit like a directory. They could go through it that way. So, and I also think that in terms of resources, there is a section in the book that has resources, and also on From Farms to Incubators, we're going to have an expanded resource section. I think there are publications that focus on the industry, such as Ag Funder is a good example. They have a lot of timely news stories related to ag tech. Food and Tech is another one as well. And also I would say that conferences and industry associations are really good resources, because they often hold events and gatherings. As you know, as things maybe open up more, they'll go back to their networking sessions where people might get together after work, you know, with their favorite beverage and connect with other people through a business card. I know in the area of Salinas, it was Western growers, and also you have industry associations like PMA and so forth as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of resources, also accelerators and incubators. I was going to mention too that a couple of months ago, I and a group of women founders in ag tech launched a searchable directory of women in ag tech. So actually, we've got hundreds of women on that list, and it's meant to be embedded and shared with different folks. And I'm happy to share that link out. But we did that because we wanted people to easily find women working in that space and connect with them. So if you're a grower, you're an investor, you're a young woman interested in a mentor, if you're a journalist who wants to quote a woman in ag tech, we wanted that to be made available. And there's plans to extend that to a resource directory as well.
Is it on Airtable?
Yes, it's on Airtable.
Okay, I just put, I think, a link to the correct one if you want to check it and make sure if that's it. It's Women in Agri-Food, is that it?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that actually addressed a previous question that someone mentioned. Where was it? Is there an Excel sheet where we can share to network and keep up with each other? I'd love to learn more what everyone is working on. I'm currently a drone pilot developing a sustainability app for ag tech and cannabis. And then they put their Instagram and Twitter accounts. So that kind of gets to that, where you can share and network and keep up with each other.
I was also going to say that Silicon Valley Forum and Western growers are having a 2-day conference in August. And I think the first day is going to be like a pitch competition of different ag tech companies. And then the second day is more of like speakers, panels, forum type. So yeah, that's in August. And I think it's going to be mostly around, it says, bee sustainability, technology, pollination, hive protection, stuff like that.
Sorry, what was the name of the event again?
I'll type it into the chat. It's by Silicon Valley Forum, yeah.
Oh, I think, Jessica, that only went to me. So I'll put that in the chat for everyone.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if I did that.
That's okay. I did that earlier. Actually, I've done that like 10 times today. And I can pull a link for that and then put it in the email for this afterwards as well. So I'll look that up.
Erin, I was going to say that I also have a document that's called What Can I Do? That's the name of the document, actually, What Can I Do? And it has a list of bullet points as to like if people want to get involved actually more in the Women in Ag Tech initiative. And I'm happy to share that as a Word document to you to share with everybody later on as well.
That'll be great. Yeah, I'll send out that email in a couple of hours here, so feel free and send it over. Thank you. All right, we've got still 10 minutes. Does anyone have any burning questions?
I was going to mention something quickly when it comes to resources. I just thought of this. There is a woman in the book as well named Martha Montoya. And she was very successful in getting funding all throughout the pandemic. And there's actually specific citations of what the competitions and the resources of where she went. Literally almost every other week during the height of the pandemic, she would call me and say, now I got this funding and that funding. I was actually kind of surprised because I didn't know if anybody would be getting any funding at all during this pandemic, but she was extremely successful. So and I think that she's included the names of those sources in her interviews as well. So I think, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that also. She's been very, very successful that way.
Awesome, thank you. So there was one, I think, example of some work, some ag tech being used on farms to address food loss. Amy, have you heard of any others, or Jessica, any pilot projects or startups working on farm food loss and food waste? No, not really. Okay. I'm just curious.
Startups in food waste? Is that what you said?
Yeah, in food waste or food loss, on the farm. It's kind of a niche area.
Yeah, I mean, one of the companies that I did a story about that addresses food waste through the area of artificial intelligence was a company called AgShift out of Silicon Valley, and they created a machine called a Hydra that uses artificial intelligence to grade the quality of strawberries, blackberries, all kinds of berries and nuts, with the idea that actually artificial intelligence and the algorithms they use are a more powerful way to to, you know, to accurately grade these fruits as well. So I think she created it with the idea of lessening, you know, the amount of food waste which is out there, which is tremendous. I mean, food waste is a huge problem, I think, in the U.S.
I agree. Thanks, Bhavneet, for putting that link in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and look at that later. She put a link about a tool that is interesting, provides data transparency between farmers and financial institutions. And then Ebony, to address your question, will there be a link to the recording? Yes, this is being recorded, and I'm going to go ahead and send it out via email to all of those that registered and attended. So I'll put the link on YouTube and then send that out, as well as some of the resources that we talked about too. Cool. So someone joined us. They were a middle school science teacher. I mean, I do have a question. We've kind of hit at it a little bit, but basically I was wondering, how can we inspire not just more women to get into the field specifically, but just more youth into farming, but also like STEM? Do you have any words of encouragement to inspire them?
Is that question for, oh, okay. Yeah, so I'd say that, you know, I did a summer course one year teaching kids how to code. And, you know, I'd say that like anytime I teach kids, there's always a lot of excitement and, you know, just handing them a problem to solve, you know, they're always quick to try to solve it, you know. So I've never found any, like personally, any difficulty trying to do that. And I feel like, especially if it's novel, like I'm sure it is here in Merced, like teaching tech and ag at the same time, you know, I feel like kids would really be interested in that, especially if it's presented in a way that's like almost like gamified for them, you know. So yeah, I'd say that like pretty much most kids are into, you know, their phones or iPads, and having them create their own app is a fun way for them to get involved. You know, it can be something super simple, but you know, through that summer course, most of the kids were able to like fully complete an app, you know, and it was anywhere from age 8 to age 17. So yeah, it was pretty, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I think, oh yeah, cool. You teach an hour of code. Um, yeah, I'd say that like integrating like ag with that, if you wanted to, you know, even just introducing each topic individually. The way I presented it was basically like, you know, think of a problem in your community and then think of a simple solution for that problem, and let's create an app. Um, so yeah, it was a lot of fun, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that there are programs like in the Salinas Valley. There was a program called Coder Dojo. I think it might be a program in other cities as well, teaching young people how youth. I think it might have been, you know, middle school onwards, how to code. But also, I was saying that thinking that the FFA, the Future Farmers of America, and the 4-H clubs, which have a tremendous network across the U.S. I think the membership is actually tremendous in terms of the numbers. Actually, somebody was telling me like 300,000. They're beginning to really consider agriculture and innovation as part of their programming, as part of their outreach, as part of maybe their curriculum. And I think that's great because there are so many kids that are actually members of those organizations still. Yeah. And also Digital Nest. Oh, I see it in the chat box. Yes, Digital Nest also has a branch in the Salinas area as well. So I think something like a Digital Nest, if it can be cloned, that would be wonderful.
I'm learning so much. I've never even heard of Digital Nest. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think the young people after school, they go there, and it's a really beautiful space. You know, there's a lounge, and they can hang out, and also they have, like Jessica was saying, different workshops, and they also bring the youth to field trips to various, could be everywhere from the large companies like Fresh Express and Taylor Farms to meeting entrepreneurs and, you know, and other tech companies in the area.
That's great. Oh yeah, Bitwise. Bitwise seems to do some tangential things in Fresno and surroundings with workforce development. Interesting. Yeah, I saw that too. They are opening up an office in Merced. I've spoken with them a little bit about potentially doing some stuff around food insecurity. And then, you know, pandemic stuff kind of like got in the way. But it'd be interesting to see what else they're up to. All right, so we've got 2 minutes. Any like burning thoughts, any burning questions for anyone? This has been invaluable.
I guess I was just going to say that I feel like that this was really engaging, that, you know, the questions and also the folks out there in this audience who are attending today and who are asking these different questions. Like, I forgot who said it in the chat, but it would be great to find a way for all of us to connect, you know, somehow, because I think that there are certain things that I would be interested in learning more about myself.
So it looks like we have a problem. We'll have to find a good solution for connecting. Maybe we create an app or something. Networking app. Slack. Yeah, that could work. Or Discord. Yeah. Great. Jessica, any like final thoughts?
Thank you everyone for joining today. If you haven't read Amy's book, go and get it. Yeah, I think it's really great and really inspiring. So
I agree. And I put the link in the chat, as well as that link for the book will also be in the email. It sounds like maybe Discord is warranted for this kind of conversation. So if someone wants to start that, feel free, and then I can send that out at some point once it's all ready to go. I can do the second email. And then, yeah, I hope everyone else has a fantastic day. Thank you again, Jessica and Amy, for being here. And I look forward to what's next for you all with Happy Organics and next books and future of agtech.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.